Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another very, very special edition of StarSound Speaks. I'm your host, Irlianna Samsara of StarSound Astrology, and we are back for part 2 of our amazing epic SAG adventure with Erin Reese. Hello, Erin. Thank you for jumping back in.
Oh,
I have to say, of all the podcasts I've ever done, I'm just going to launch, right? I mean, we already set up this. If you haven't watched part 1 of my interview with Erin, please go ahead and watch that. We set the stage for SAG season, but I feel very strongly, really, really divinely directed by Kali Ma, Divine Mother, who is slaying ignorance and ego. I'm feeling very directed to just jump right into this deep dive with all things SAG, your spiritual journey into India. So you're going to be hearing direct experience from Erin. And I have a million questions, so we're trying to fit it into a normal amount of time. Ha, silly me. But I think just, what I was bringing up in the previous episode, Erin, was this desire that you have, which is like bigger than, this desire to know one's truth, and you going to India to, I don't know how to say, find yourself and to discover whatever that it is. And how that just, it seemed like it completely consumed you. And I don't think anybody could ever, I want to go to India, but I don't think anybody could ever go to India and not be, I mean, unless you were like some tourist on like a tourist bus, I don't know. It seems to me that when you go in at the depth that you do, it's like it consumes you.
Yes, that's true. And that's something that I make a differentiation in the new book that's coming out, BINDI Girl 2, about the difference between tourism and traveling. First of all, there's a big difference between being a tourist and a traveler. Immersing yourself into a culture and allowing the culture to have its way with you versus the other way around, where you're just sort of shopping, window shopping, and taking photos and collecting stamps on your passport. So that's the first thing. So we have tourism, and then we have traveler, and we have adventure, and then we have wandering, and we have complete surrender to a place, to India. And it's not for everybody. I mean, honestly, the level of travel, like I mentioned before, 5 years altogether, I between in the 2000s, it's a calling. It's a calling for those who are really, it's necessary to leave everything behind. That's not for everyone. I mean, I think that someone can go to India for 2 weeks and get what they need, a month, 3 months, 6 months, or it might be 10 years or 20 years. That's basically between you and your own soul. But she will hold on to you, India, Mother India, as long as she needs you there to have her way with you.
And if you're smart, you let her.
Yes, absolutely. Well, if you're smart, you'll let her with everything in the life, right?
Right.
Everything. Right. That's the point. And it just depends on, I think, and I know that Eckhart Tolle and others have talked about this in Great Saints and Sages, like the gift of suffering. What is the gift of suffering?
Yes.
The gift
What is the gift of suffering?
Yeah, the gift of suffering is to bring you to your knees. The gift of suffering is to realize your own powerlessness and your own total 100% humility.
You're making me cry. Oh my God. And you said something before we got on the podcast. By the way, I want to briefly just go into the mundane for just a moment here and share the screen. I want to show people what these the books look like that we're talking about here. This is Bindi Girl, the diving deep into the heart of India. This is already on Amazon. Bindi, Truth Seeker, which is like very much Long Dark Night of the Soul, a spiritual adventure of love, loss, and liberation. And now this new one coming out is Bindi Girl 2, more adventures that didn't make it into the first book. So surrendering to the soul of India. So I just want to, shout out, this is what you want to be looking for. And like that. But anyway, if I can now.
Irlianna, did you want to pull up the covers for the other two, or just leave it on the Bindi Girl?
Oh, you couldn't. I'm sorry. You couldn't. I'm not very good with tech. So yeah, let me show.
Yeah, me neither. Not with the screen share.
All right. So there's Bindi Girl, and then there's Truth Seeker came out next. And this is what that looks like.
Perfect.
Can
Right.
everybody see that? Okay. And yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. Of spiritual adventure of love, loss, and liberation. And then the third one, thank you for calling that to my attention.
Mhm.
I'm not going to quit my day job.
Ah.
Let's see. The third one is Bindi Girl 2, which is over here. And here she is. I love, it's so beautiful what you've done there. It's adorable.
Thank you. Thank
So
you so much.
yeah, so there's Bindi Girl 2, surrendering to the soul of India, and that'll be available in about a month or two. You're going to have that on Amazon.
Probably January or early Feb at the latest. And I'm thinking she's going to be an Aquarius.
Okay, yeah, give her an Aquarius birth time. So
Yes. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
cool.
Exactly.
I just love
Mm-hmm.
those. The covers are so beautiful. I'm so captivated by these books in a way that I have not been captivated in a very, very long time. And that's why I just felt so guided to have you here. Anyway, getting back to our deep mystical rabbit hole, you had said something before we got on the podcast about spiritual seeking.
Mm-hmm.
That if you're a spiritual seeker, how did you say it? You're suffering, something like that. Can you talk about that?
The seeking is the suffering.
See,
Yeah, we want to take a minute to, even saying that, right? You can feel it. It goes in pretty deep. So there are many different things to say about that. The simplest way to see that the seeking is the suffering is to see, obviously, that you're seeking for something outside of the self, of what is actually here. And that creates separation, which is another definition of suffering. There's something outside of this. So for many people, and this kind of goes into a segue into this dark night of the soul theme that you and I mentioned last time. The suffer or the seeking goes on for as long as it lasts. It lasts as long as it lasts. It lasts as long as it lasts. That's one's destiny. So it will stop when it stops.
When I first got on my spiritual path, I remember thinking, gosh, I wish I had this information when I was like 14 or 15 years old. I would have saved myself so much heartache. It's kind of too bad that I waited, it wasn't until I was 28 or whatever. Yeah, it was right out of the Saturn return. So, but it's like, yeah, but no, it was all, of course, I knew that it was all perfect, but the seeking.
Yes, of course. You knew it was all perfect. Right. And so oftentimes what happens is there can be a neurotic continuing of the seeking. And what actually calms the soul or the body mind down is the presencing of being in the moment, of realizing, of the true realization, the embodied realization that there is nothing outside of this. And now it's gone. And that's gone too. There's nothing outside of this.
Yeah.
And there's a relaxation into that which is never not here. It's a double negative.
Yeah. It's such a trip.
It is a trip. It's a trip and it feels darn good, doesn't it? Doesn't it feel good?
Liberating.
Yes, it's liberating. Absolutely liberating.
And I just want to laugh like the whole.
Yes.
Like this is
Yes.
all
It's a joke. It's an absolute joke.
It is a joke. The whole thing is a big freaking and the more serious people are about it, the louder I laugh. Like it's like crazy. Right. Oh my God, who made this up? We did.
It's the ever effulgent self. It's the ever unfolding self of which we are not separate, And the other aspect of the suffering is that's again very simple is this idea of separate doership, of separate self-will, that somehow I am doing something. It is all being done. It is all happening simultaneously, of which we are a part of. And once there's 100% apprehension of that, 100% understanding of that, there is a relief. And the irony of it, or the paradox of it, is that one still continues to live one's life as if there is separate free will. As if we are doing things. That's the joke.
Right.
That's the
Like,
Bhagavad Gita.
right. I like there, and to translate that into more vernacular, it's like if you think something like, if you think you're in control of things, tell God your plans, or something
Yes,
like that. You know, there's that.
exactly. If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Right, that's
Right.
right. Yeah. Or tell her
Exactly.
tell her, tell your
Tell
best
her
friend.
your plans. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Wow. Um, yeah, it's mind-boggling. It's just, I remember, yeah, yeah. Sheesh. There was something it slipped my mind, but I was going to say something about get, you know, yeah, the first thing is that I just laughed, you know, like the whole, it just, everything just makes you laugh. Like you, you
Mhm.
get,
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's a
ah,
joke. It's hilarious. And it's a movie. It really is a movie. And that doesn't mean, it's sort of like when we go into the theater and we immerse ourselves in watching Avatar or Terminator or Black Panther, whatever it might be, we feel viscerally everything that's going on the screen. It's what we pay money for at the movies, to have that experience.
yeah, immersion.
To
Yeah.
remember that it's part of the movie. And yet we are both, it's also the joke, because we are totally trapped in the movie as well. We are both free and trapped. We are destined to experience whatever we are destined to experience for as long as we, are incarnate. And there is the possibility of realization in this lifetime. It doesn't have to be it's only right now. It can only happen now. There is the possibility to see through that and then to feel a great sense of relief, a great sense of relief, a great sense of relief. And that's the end of suffering. That's one definition of the end of suffering.
You said that
The
3
end of
times,
seeking.
the magic 3 times, the end of seeking.
And for me, it's also very important to see, and this goes into what you and I mentioned regarding the dark night of the soul, is the end of the identification, the end of the egoic identification. So the ego is sort of this point in time and space that, thinks that it's Erin or Irlianna and doing things, but it's sort of like, Ramana Maharshi talks about it as like, if have you ever seen a burnt rope? It looks like a snake, but it's actually just ash. You can't pick anything up. So it's kind of useless. Like the ego is just sort of bouncing around like an old vestigial tail, and it's still, but it doesn't really create any problem, because the soul, if you will, is so dropped into the self with the big S that it doesn't have an identification anymore with what is happening. It's not
Mm.
identified, and that process is the dissolving of the identification with the persona or the self-image can be very painful. It can take a while for those structures to kind of crack and melt, and that's one part of the dark night of the soul. It can be very painful because there's nowhere to turn. You're like a snake with no skin.
Mm. And I think when you say that, I think about mental illness and what people perceive to be mental illness. And right now, as you know, in our country and in the the whole Western world, going through enormous. I mean, certainly in this country, the opioid crisis and mental illness at an all-time high, and the number of people who have committed suicide went, skyrocketing during the pandemic, and all of that, and Jupiter, now we have Jupiter 28, just about to go final degree 29 Pisces, conjunct Sheet, the fixed star. And that can be a long, dark night of the soul. There, I can see where that could you know, these things could magnify, but of course the divine grace, which is woven right into it. As my friend says, who's an engineer scientist, he's like, in every problem, the solution is already woven in to the very problem. So it's like you said, it's non-dual, that there is no outside this. It's like it's all part of the same ball of wax.
Absolutely. And then we get into what's a problem?
When
What is
somebody's
a problem? What
losing
is a
their
problem?
identity, they're when they're saying I'm going crazy or I'm
That's
depressed, it's like depression. What is that spiritual aspect of depression, what so many people suffer from? Like, what is it?
yes. But what the word problem is a label, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's a
I mean,
problem according to whom? From the perspective of the entire whole of what your engineer was talking about. The
or
solution is woven in because a problem is only from a
what
particular
perspective?
perception.
Right. So maybe I
And
should
that's
say suffering instead. Like we have so many people, millions and millions of people suffering from, you know, mental
yes,
illness or just
right,
depression. We'll just talk about it as
exactly.
depression. And
Exactly. Yes, depression. Yes. And the depression is something that again, this worthy inquiry of, you know, whether one becomes a spiritual seeker or begins this spiritual inquiry process, that's also not up to the individual. That's something that happens in the life. It's one's destiny to, as a child, be a seeker, to look around or to be interested in spirituality or Christianity or astrology. So that's one's destiny. So I lost my train of thought there, but thinking about the worthy inquiry of the spirit and this, not thinking so much extreme with the opioid crises or mental illness, but in general, this sort of uh, you know, this, how you want to say, developed nations or materialistic nations, that there's this epidemic of depression
yeah,
because of existential suffering.
yes.
And what we kind of know in our hearts, but we don't know how to get out of it, is that all of the things that we're being, and you know this, that are being sold to us in the media or in the culture is very important to think about. And that's one of the things that I really appreciated about Andrea Michelle's work with series, the Asteroid Goddess series of being of culture. Very important to look at the culture. What is the culture telling us that is supposed to be happiness? What is supposed to be happy, whether it's getting the nice relationship or the new car or having a better job or even a fat retirement or even physical health, everything. So what happens is the culture can create a striving that is not necessarily organic to the individual body mind organism. It's something that can be put upon. And so then the seeking begins to strive, but there is a constant unfulfillment, or it's a fleeting fulfillment. And there's a part of the self, the soul, that knows that and becomes deeply unhappy of being sold a faulty bill of goods.
The soul knows the truth.
Yes, exactly. And so sometimes it gets so incredibly painful that perhaps one has to leave their marriage or their job, or they have a health crisis, or even just everything, as you know, you and I talked about, everything is lost. Or even when not everything is lost and you're living in a castle or something like that, the soul is so deeply unhappy that we get to the point where there is nothing that can feed that ache and fill that hole. Nothing, not even the seeming answer to the prayer, not even the great relationship. Anything that comes in isn't really it.
Yeah, it can't be in that frame of thinking.
Yeah, it's what we call in Sanskrit and in non-dual practices, neti neti, not this, not this. It's not that. It's not that. It's not that. The minute that you label it, it's not that. It's not that. Because all of those things are impermanent. They are part of the Maya that's arising, or the Leela, the game. So that the true heart knows that, and it is looking to realize that which is never not here. It's not a job or a relationship or a sexy body or any of that. It is craving something that is ever, ever present.
Craving something that is
That's
ever
that's
present,
the ultimate.
never lost.
Yeah. It's
Wow.
we say the double negative, the never not here, because if we say it's always here, then it creates, well, what is it when that's not around? So it's never not here. It's the
You're right.
absence of the absence of presence. Yeah.
The
The
absence
absence
of
of
the
the absence
absence.
of presence.
Ah, that's such a deep rabbit. Oh my God. So when you were in your book, you have many stories of, well, all your books. When did you discover this, or like how was that for you, your long dark night of the soul? What
Mhm.
happened to you? Can you maybe share a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, the long dark night of the soul, there have been a few in my life, but the one that I feel like is pertinent to this particular conversation is this scrambling of seeking, of trying so many different things to feel peace. I wouldn't even say happiness. I would say just peace would be enough, right?
Yes.
There was so much self-hatred, but there was not just internal self-hatred, it was hatred of the world, hatred of existence, hatred of the fact that there was just anything outside of the self. There, like I said, there was something that knew that everything was fleeting. Okay. And the only thing that I knew that I could do, and this is very strong language, and I understand that, I just want to give that little disclaimer, and this is kind of all in this Truth Seeker book.
Mm.
I was ready to die, not suicidal, but existentially. I couldn't face another day. So I was ready to die a spiritual death. And I knew that the place that I could do that for myself was to return to India for this second round. I had come back after 6 months. I had started another career as an astrology writer, producer, and so forth. And then I decided I had to go back for this time with a one-way ticket. And that was my symbolic dive off the cliff. I will be a renunciate wanderer and
Wow.
see what the life brings me. I will sort of live as if I'm already dead. And
Mm.
there was still the attempt, little futile attempts to try, okay, maybe another meditation or yoga or another boyfriend or whatnot. And by the grace of the divine, I mean, this is all in the, I don't want to give too much away because this is in the book,
Yeah. I
but
want. Yeah, the
I
book
want you
is
to, I
amazing.
hope that folks read it but I don't
Yeah.
want to give a spoiler, but
Right. Right.
the short version is I met a person that introduced me to non-duality, to Advaita Vedanta in the lineage of Ramana Maharshi. And I had practiced Buddhism or Vipassana and yoga, of course, but I had not heard about this level of surrender or the possibility that all is the self. Okay, all is the self. It's kind of like one way to put it, and this is really dumbing it down, but we could just say almost like Advaita is sort of like the Hindu version of Zen, in a way, of Zen Buddhism. We could go there a little bit just for anybody who wants a reference point. But it was such a revelation to me that I wasn't I wasn't responsible for this level of pain, that I wasn't making this happen. I had thought that this was all my own doing. I had done everything. I had spent years in therapy, recovery, creative workshops, you name it, and everything. Business. I had done everything to come out of this dark night of the soul, this existential suffering, and nothing was working. I was deeply unhappy. And primarily the number one thing, and I think we all have our one particular rub, for me was the failure of being in any sort of room. I couldn't make a relationship work for the life of me. I was miserable, whether the person was a great person or, you know, picked not a winner or whatever. In relationship, I couldn't, it just was always a problem. It was deep. I was deeply unhappy in relationship.
Because you kept looking.
Even though I was doing all the right things, you know? So, so when I was introduced to this, I wouldn't say path, but Advaita as a perennial teaching, as a living wisdom, I wasn't interested in any form of a guru. I had an allergy to that. And yet I also was sort of intrigued because it seemed like this person that I met was free and had peace. And it was really pissing me off.
Wow. It's not like you didn't say, oh, I want that. It was actually a confront.
I wanted it, but I was frustrated because he was also way younger than I was and hadn't, you know, and I had done all this work and I just couldn't. I thought, I want that, but you know, how to get it, whatever. And the paradox, as you know, of, you know, even the seeking has to be dropped. The desire for awakening also needs to go. So there's a real paradox here.
Wow. A seeking, yeah. That whole,
does that make sense?
Yeah. And the seeker is the suffering. The seeking is
that's right.
Oof. That's like, I think about all the years when I lived in Sedona, and I, you know, it's world famous for seekers, as are many places, including, of course, India. And, you know, seeing all that and seeing that, and that grasping on the outside, but that I had been in there and I know that terrain very well. But then there was a point in my life that I got to where I'm like, oh, and I just saw everything differently. And it's like, there's no judgment about it at all. It's like, yeah, none of it means anything. It just is what it is. And yeah.
Yeah, it's meaningful as long as it lasts. The seeking is meaningful as long as it lasts. But eventually what we also find out is, you know, remember that game at the amusement park, the whack-a-mole, where the little gophers pop up and you take the sledgehammer and you try to hit
the gophers.
Yeah, right. So there's the latest the latest solution to my suffering. Okay, I'm going to do this crystal workshop, and now I'm going to do a sound healing, and now I'm going to go meditate, and now I'm going to do yoga, and but then these gophers keep popping up of like, it's not it. It's not it. So the whole enchilada has to go. The whole thing.
The whole mechanism of seeking, of taking that thing and hammering. It's like, no, don't hammer, don't.
Yes, or we have the other alternative of folks that create another spiritual persona, where everything is love and light and it's all good. And then we have the spiritual bypass, which is another trap in itself.
Right. Yeah.
So the irony, and I know that you're very connected in the moment to Kali Ma, right, is to embrace everything. Everything. Yeah. Even the worst.
Even the worst is
even grief. The worst. It all is here.
Yeah.
So just to, you know, kind of a long answer to your question of what happened. So I was introduced to this possibility of freedom, and then at the irony of it is that even that desire for freedom had to go.
Yeah. Wow.
Or the paradox, the desire for freedom had to go.
And the paradox. It's beautiful. Gosh, I could talk to you for hours, but yeah, we have to do schedule another. But yeah, I think we certainly opened the door here, and I can't wait to delve into the rest of the books and you know, and all of it, you know, but because what I've read so far was just so captivating, to me. And I think it awakened something in my soul, probably a lot of past life connection and
Mhm.
recognizing the truth and stepping out of this workaday world matrix. So I'm really grateful for what you're bringing here with your books. And certainly, even if people find this video long after SAG season has passed, these are eternal mysteries and eternal truths that have been around, forever. And no matter where and when we might find this little podcast and what I'm doing, certainly stretches way beyond such season, but it's something, it's a part of who we all are, that eternal part of ourselves, our spirit soul, as Anna Millenboss would say, our spirit soul. Very heady, very heady.
Yes, our spirit soul.
Is there anything you want to say wrapping up, like that you might want to, that comes to you, anything in your heart that to share with any of us?
Yeah, follow that call. Follow the call.
No matter what,
Follow the
no matter
call.
how uncomfortable it
Absolutely.
might upset other people's feathers,
Mhm.
ruffle the feather,
Mhm.
yeah.
That's right. And be willing to be willing to leave everything,
Everything.
everything and everything, every concept, everyone. Be willing to
Burning.
leave it all. There's a phrase, I think it's from Christianity, which is from Jesus, actually, of leave everything and follow me.
Mhm.
And leave everything and follow me. And really, what does that mean? It's not necessarily about following one particular teacher or master, but it's about the fact of the freedom that is found when there is nothing left to lose. It's sort of like we can go back to Janis Joplin, right? Freedom is just another word for
Right.
nothing left to lose. Right,
Mhm.
exactly. And
Yeah.
it's worthy, it's the willingness to lose everything in order to experience real freedom and not be bound by the chains of culture, materialism, and all of that. And that doesn't mean, as you well know, that I'm sure you know, that when one is 100% surrendered to
Mhm.
whatever is arising in the life, but no, there's no such thing as compromise there. 100% surrendered to whatever is here. One may very well have great material prosperity. It doesn't mean that one has to be a renunciate. It's an inside job, right?
Right. Yeah.
Inside job. So I
And
guess that the main thing I'll just say is, again, is just to heed the call. It's a worthy call, and the seeking will last as long as it lasts. And eventually, one day, it will stop, and there will be peace.
and how fitting with our South Node in Scorpio too, like just let go. Just let go and
Let
transform
go, and just a tiny little subtle difference. This is, again, when we remove the idea of the individual volition or doership. So we would ask ourselves, who is it that's letting go?
Who's doing
Because
the letting go?
if we say just let go or just surrender, there's still an egoic person or involvement there. So
Right.
one bridge to that is to allow it is being lifted. It is being lifted. It is
Yeah.
being lifted. Yes.
I love that. It's very Eckhart Tolle-ish, because he
Yeah.
say the same thing.
Because otherwise what we do is we're reinforcing involvement.
Right. Reinforcing.
Even the subtlest involvement of letting go.
Right. It can be a trap.
No way out when you're looking at it. There's no way out.
Right.
That's that freedom and bondage that I was talking about.
And that's life, the death, death has to occur, that complete
That's
death
right. Yes.
before the life comes.
Yes. Yes. And
That
then I get
that's the
excited because we
cosmic
start
joke.
talking about death.
The what? What was that?
I said, and then I get excited because we start talking
Talking
about
about
death.
death. Yeah, I know when my mother died. I'll just say this in wrapping up. When my mother passed and I came home and I was watering my garden and I'm like, wow, you know, this whole death thing, what a scam. What a scam this is. What a lie. You know, I was never
Mm.
so present to life as when my beloved mother passed. And oh, it was like, this is a total lie. This is a, in all the Hollywood with these horror films and this gory death horror, you know, scary fear, like, oh, blood and gore. I'm like, it's just, what, wow. It just blew me away. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. We are never closer to life than we are that's why I keep death as a friend. Very close.
Yeah, it
So
really is.
I
Well,
just want to take this moment to say thank you very much for having me on your podcast. It's a very special podcast. I love the guests that you bring and the heart that you bring and the generosity that you bring and your
oh,
love. It really shines through. Thank you.
oh, no, I'm getting wet eyes again. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it's a work in progress. I'm a work in progress, but all I have to do is just keep showing up, and however I am, you know, teary-eyed or whatever, you know, just like my heart,
Beautiful.
I'm still unraveling a lot. So yeah, you know, guys, this is a work in progress, and I have no great transgender activist Kate Bornstein. She has said, you know, if you know what you're doing, don't do it. I love
Oh,
that.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You know what you're
that's
doing.
really great.
Yeah. So I
Staying
think
in a beginner's mind, as you mentioned. Yeah.
here's mine. Yeah.
Only don't know. That's another slogan. There you go.
Only don't know. Yeah. It's another way of saying it. So that's what I want to leave everybody with today on this podcast. You know, never not knowing, and yeah,
Never not here.
never not here. Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful, and I'm sure this will be the one, you know, more to come with you. I would love to just keep this conversation open and growing, and just see where it goes and be in that unknown, just to continue that. So I'm so grateful that you know, that I can go there with you. Really
Me
wonderful.
too.
Thank you so much. And so again, I'm going to put it in the comment section below. ErinReese.com. You're also on Substack, right?
Yes, that's a
Substack.com.
really good way to follow my work, and I write regularly or post things also about my books and other writing and music and things like that.
Cool.
But yeah, and the books are on Amazon.
And the books are on Amazon. Yay! Oh, I'm so excited. Yay! Congratulations on all those books and the
Thank you
newest
so
one.
much. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. And so I hope that everybody has a great Thanksgiving week. I know these are rich episodes, and I hope that you enjoy them and relish them as much as we do all those beautiful the food on our table and everything that we're grateful for. And so we will see you next time. And this is Irlianna Samsara, Erin Reese, and of ErinReese.com, and Bindi Girl 1, Bindi Girl 2, and Truth Seeker. Those 3 books. Recommended reading. And we will see you all soon. Thank you so much. Namaste. Namaste. All right.